Rose, are we leaving is it doors just leave them open and let people trickle in, or? Yeah, okay. Cool. Hope everyone enjoyed lunch. Yeah, I thought the awesome food, Rose. Great job. That was great. Okay, so let's get into this afternoon session. So this next session here is all about making the jump, moving from marketing products to actually marketing services. So I feel like services marketing, it's something we haven't talked much about today, but is a really important form of marketing in many different companies. So I'm really interested to hear this session today. Our speaker is the lead product marketing manager of services at UKG. Rachel has 12 years of marketing experience at small startups, SMBs, and enterprise tech companies. Her career is spanned across all marketing disciplines, from events to demand gen to product marketing, services marketing. And outside of work, she's a mentor and ambassador for Out in Tech, a nonprofit organization that unifies the LGBTQ plus tech community. Help me welcome to the stage, Rachel Raposa.
Thank you. Thanks. Awesome. Can you hear me? Awesome. Great. And I have old school notes because sometimes I need them. But thank you all. Thanks for joining. Great introduction. Thank you very much. Again, my name is Rachel Raposa. I'm from UKG, also known as Ultimate Kronos Group. We sell HR, payroll, timekeeping solutions. If you've ever worked in an hourly role, you've probably clocked in on a Kronos time clock, so that's who we are. We sell to all markets, SMB, mid-market, enterprise. So we are a large organization. I think we're currently at 15,000 employees. So just to give you a little bit of background about who we are, B2B company. So a lot of my information here, a lot of my experience in and of itself is at B2B. So we can jump to this next slide. There we go. All right, so here's what I'm going to cover today. First thing, what is services marketing? So I'll define that for you, tell you exactly what I'm talking about. One, how is it similar to and different from product marketing? And then lastly, what is the business case for services marketing? So I did want to define what services marketing is and how it's similar and different before I get into the business case. It is really important, so I'm going to leave that for the end. And before I jump right in, a little bit about me. So first of all, as Jason mentioned, 7 years in product marketing, over 12 years in marketing. I started in nonprofit, moved into biotech, now into tech. And by and large, last 7 years have been product marketing focused roles. Again, orgs of all sizes has really gotten me a good feel for what works at a large company and what works at a small company. They're very different, but by and large, the role of product marketing is important regardless of company size. Then last one, Jill of all trades. So again, I have worked in events, I've worked in demand and content, digital, all those things. It's really helped inform a lot of what I do in product marketing. So I do encourage you to either get a little bit more experience in different areas. It definitely helps with those conversations with those stakeholders in those different areas. So been a huge help to me. I am also, it's not on the slide, but I am also from Boston. Do I have any other Boston people here? Yes, okay. Okay, that's great. We do travel. That's good to know. I drove in yesterday, and I gotta say, New York, your road system is far superior than Boston. It was an absolute delight being able to navigate the streets of New York relative to Boston. So that is the one compliment you'll get from a Boston person today. I'm also co-chair of our Pride ERG at UKG. So we have a number of ERGs. Pride is our LGBTQ plus ERG. So I cannot tell you how beneficial that participating in an ERG has been to my career. I've got to meet people from different areas of the business, especially when I jumped into the services marketing role a little over a year ago. I was working on a whole new part of the business. It was pretty much a new position at UKG. But luckily, a ton of Pride members in the services organization, and I can't tell you how great it is to look across the table and say, see a familiar face and, just jump right into things and not necessarily have the awkward, oh, what do you do? What do I do? Type of thing. So definitely encourage everyone to join an ERG, participate in it. Hugely beneficial.
What's an
Oh, I'm so sorry. Employee resource group. Diversity networks, business resource groups are also the other names for them. So basically special interest groups at an organization. All right, so enough about me. What is services marketing? So first, what's my scope? What am I actually covering in services marketing? So I'm gonna boil it down to two main things. The first one is articulating, messaging, positioning, driving content, sales enablement around the value of our customer experience. So this is everything that a customer quote unquote gets when they purchase our software. So this is everything from implementation to support to success to our learning and all of our training opportunities and our customer community. So this is a huge piece of my role. And basically we want to package it up and sell it as an experience. We're a premium solution in the market. In order to charge that premium price, we have to provide a premium experience, and we've got to sell it to those customers. So again, huge piece of my role. Each of those different functions within the customer experience definitely could deserve a whole head count if we had the budget. But that's basically, I would say, 60% of my role. The other 40% is marketing and supporting our value-added services. So aside from the stuff that's included with your software purchase, this is the stuff that customers pay for in addition to what they get. So this is everything from consulting services to maybe technical or configuration services, things like that. So these, to be quite honest, are not huge revenue drivers. So, however, they drive a lot of other things, like product expansion opportunities, retention rates, and CSAT scores. So again, not huge revenue generating things, but those three things are definitely critical. Three other things are definitely critical to a SaaS organization. So definitely you want to take a look at your value-added services, package them up, see how you can sell them. Make sure that you're looking at them from the perspective of your broader customer experience. So what I mentioned before on the last slide, you're selling your whole customer experience. Your value-added services are definitely a part of that message. So again, that's what I cover in my scope. In terms of my actual responsibilities, I mentioned a few already, but fairly similar, fairly straightforward role, messaging and positioning. I have to message and position our customer experience. I have to message and position our value-added services. Pretty easy. Launches, I support all of our services launches. If we're rolling out something new with support, if we're rolling out something new with a value-added service, I'm in charge of all those launches. Sales enablement, so I have to help sales understand how to message and position our customer experience, and then for value-added services, who might be a good fit for different services, so I do a lot of that. And then marketing team support, so again, working cross-functionally with demand, events, content, our web team, just to help push my agenda and also help them work with me to get some of my other priorities together. So again, just to recap, responsibilities, pretty straightforward, fairly straightforward product marketing role, just focused on services. Important to note, we are a big organization at UKG, so I did want to highlight what I don't do. So first one is customer engagement programs. So these are the things like delighter campaigns, increasing user adoption of different features, stuff like that. I don't cover that. We have a huge customer marketing team at UKG that handles all of that. So they do a great job with that. I work very closely with them, but not part of my scope. And I'm also a stakeholder or subject matter expert to our competitive intelligence team, to our demand team, and to our analyst relations team. So again, I do a lot of my own competitive research just in terms of how competitors are messaging and positioning their products or experience. But we have our CI team is dedicated to running win-loss analytics, like all these different things, reading earnings reports. Our demand team, they basically look to me to see what's the priority to promote in demand gen campaigns. And then our analyst relations team, sometimes I'll hop on as a SME to talk about our customer experience, or they'll look to me to fill out those glorious RFP responses from analysts. All right, so jumping into number 2. How is marketing services similar to marketing products? Again, what is similar? My responsibility. Is not going to go through all of these again, but pretty straightforward. One thing I didn't mention here is I do a ton of content, full funnel content, so everything from thought leadership. I'm usually talking about HR and payroll. This is one of the times I actually get to talk about something that I actually do. So do thought leadership, I do mid-funnel, and I do bottom-of-funnel content. And then my many meetings. And I'll explain this in a little bit more later, but I'm in a ton of meetings. This does not change whether you're in product marketing or services marketing. I have a ton of stakeholders, lots of meetings, and I'll explain. I don't want to, scare people away from services marketing, but you'll probably have more meetings in this role. All right, so what is different? So first of all, people versus products. This is really straightforward. I'm essentially marketing people. So we have an enormous services organization that takes up about half of our employee headcount at UKG. And I'm basically charged with messaging and positioning them, which is amazing, and I love that. You just have to be cognizant that when you're messaging and positioning another person that may work right down the row from you, that you're talking about their experience and you're talking about their skill set in a way that aligns with how they think about themselves, as well as how it aligns to the market needs. So just be aware of that. It's a little bit of a nuance. No screenshots, so follow up on that. Really weird not to have screenshots for all these things or videos. So I've gotten really good at finding those great stock photos, the B-roll videos, things like that. I encourage you to even take pictures of your own services team. They actually really love to be involved in the marketing of themselves. So just one of those weird things that kind of threw me off guard. Sales comp plan. So getting into more of the business stuff here, this is a huge difference. And it really does depend on companies. Some companies, your sales team may not get comped on services. So they may only get compensated or get quota credit for recurring revenue. And a lot of times services is a one-time fixed fee type of thing, so they may not get compensated for that. So this is important when you think about the dynamics of a demand gen campaign. So hey, demand gen team, I want to run this campaign on this value-added service. They say, great, except they don't want to run it because they know down the line, once they get leads in, they're not going to have any salespeople there to follow up on them, because how many salespeople want to follow up on something that they don't get compensated for, right? So one of the nuances, I have been trying to figure this out at UKG. If this is an issue or a barrier at your organization, feel free to come chat with me. I have a couple of different ways that you can handle it at your organization, but did want to highlight that this is definitely a difference between products and services. And enabling more than sales. So this one caught me completely off guard when I stepped into this new role. I had sales enablement down, like, yes, I can cover it, blah, blah, blah. I did not know that I also needed to enable our services people themselves on our messaging and positioning. So our services people, they're all customer facing, our implementation teams, our support teams, our success teams, they all want to know how we're talking about our customer experience, how we're messaging it to buyers, so that way they can remain consistent when they take over the customer account once they're a full go live customer. So this increases my scope significantly. So there are, again, tons of different services people at UKG. This is a huge scope increase. So just be aware of that and account for that if you're budgeting for headcount. It's super important too, and they're very interested. So definitely keep that a part of your plan if you're planning on rolling out a services marketing role. Go-to-market maturity. So this is a really fun one, and I want to spend some time on this one. Services teams act a lot different than product teams. They are more reactive to customer demands. They talk to customers every day, and so they can pivot on a dime. They don't have to develop anything. It's just their expertise. So they can literally, offer one service one day, pivot, create a new SKU, and offer another service the next day. For us at UKG, that means hundreds of SKUs for a market size that literally may be one customer. So it gets a little out of control. What I found that there hasn't been much rigor in the go-to-market process. So no one there to say, hey, maybe we package this up differently. Hey, maybe we price this differently. Or hey, maybe we just don't really market this, or what the priority is. So go-to-market maturity is a lot lower than a product organization, and they need a little bit more help from product marketing to understand what that go-to-market muscle is for them. So again, this is a really big one. And this, back to my point about having many meetings, services organizations don't typically have portfolio managers. If you do at your organization, that's awesome, and it will cut down on your number of meetings, but I don't have a portfolio manager to work with who oversees a couple of different services. I have to go directly to services practice owners to work with them. So essentially, portfolio managers are the equivalent of a product manager or a product director. Services business practice owners, they're the equivalent of engineers. So I have to work with a lot more people who their lives and their priorities are very much their service and their service only. So again, go-to-market maturity for services a little bit lower, but definitely a huge opportunity. And if it's something that you're really passionate about, I'm super passionate about go-to-market. It's a really good opportunity to get into services marketing and help them fix that process. And then another piece of that, unlike products, services teams, they need demand to grow. So products, they grow in anticipation of demand and anticipation of scale. Services teams, they say, hey, we need a backlog in order for us to request more headcount in order for us to grow our services practice. So it does put a reliance on marketing as well as sales when they can to promote their services and to grow their services. And KPIs, so this leads nicely into KPIs. They're typical business KPIs of a product organization, usually ARR, revenue pipeline, things like that. Those are definitely applicable to services, but since services, depending on your go-to-market model, if you roll in a lot of services into your product, you might not be able to track that revenue. Or if a services team, maybe you're lucky, a services team has a P&L, so they do bring out services and you're able to track that revenue, that's great. However, a more effective KPI that a lot of the services owners track is the ARR of the customers using that service. So they want to know the total impact to the business around the customers in that service. So same thing with retention in CSAT. If a customer of one service has an incredible retention rate, has an incredible CSAT rate, it's worth the time and investment to build out that service, to grow that service, because down the line that's going to help your business grow. And lastly, what's different, and this is why I felt so compelled to do this talk, was that there's so little information on the web about services marketing. So I'm really good at Googling things. I have figured out a lot of my career via Google, as I'm sure I'm not the only one in this room that has, but not a lot out there. So I really had to rely on a lot of my coworkers and services to help me along, help me understand the business of services. I read a few different books. Nick Maida from Gainsight, he writes a great book about the customer experience strategy as a whole. Great way to get base level knowledge around the customer experience. I know a few folks here from Salesforce, they're pretty much pioneers in customer experience, so y'all should go chat with them. But again, little information on the web, just something to prepare for. Make sure you have good relationships across your organization if you do roll out a services marketing function. All right. So that was services marketing, what it is, the differences and the similarities between product marketing. So let's get into the business case for services marketing. The first one here is differentiate. So this is pretty clear. In my research when I was onboarding into my new role, I took a look around at our competitors, see what their messaging and positioning was on their customer experience, and there was pretty much nothing. Except for a few spots here and there, not a lot for my competitors. I did look around at other industries, still not a lot. So just purely having a more comprehensive messaging and positioning and content on your customer experience or on your services, that purely helps you differentiate because it's there. Good example of this, Does your website menu look like this? I took a screen grab, I think of six websites. Top level web navigation from their sites. I removed the logos in case anyone is here. But you'll notice that services or customer experience is not on the top level of any of these menus. And you'll also hop onto UKG and find that is also not on the top level, ours, and that will be changing. But very few organizations have customer experience on their top level website, top level web menu. So again, if you're going to invest in this, make sure you do it right. Make sure you have it up on your web menu. It will help you stand out. Premium pricing. So again, back to my point, UKG is a premium brand. We want to charge premium prices. We have to have a great experience. And so that's kind of the way of the world. In B2C, that's kind of been the standard for quite some time, where consumers are willing to pay a little bit more money for a better experience. B2B, that's certainly coming along nowadays. And I have a good data point on this afterwards. But what this really means is that if you're going to charge a premium price, you actually have to have a premium experience to go along with it. So if your organization doesn't have a premium experience, totally cool. You can also message and position that as a self-service experience or something else. So just some things to think about there. And sorry, the PwC logo is messed up, but this is a stat from PwC, is that you can charge up to a 16% price premium when you offer a premium customer experience. So again, I think everyone would love to see 16% increases on their prices. All right, last one here is market shifts. So again, technology buyers are becoming more mature, tech markets are becoming more mature. They've probably bought the cheap thing before and they've gotten burned, or maybe they've bought the best of breed thing and they've gotten burned that way because they didn't get enough value out of that robust system. So increasingly buyers are more experiential buyers. We're seeing that in a lot of our data. And so that's important. So they want to understand how exactly you're going to support them once you purchase, once they go live, how are you going to support them after that. So again, buyer shifts are hugely important and why your organization should have a customer experience and services message. And again, a stat from Forbes, 74% of buyers are at least somewhat likely to buy on experience alone. So again, nearly 3/4 of the market are potentially experiential buyers. So, all right, I think I'm doing pretty good on time, yeah. So just to wrap up, 3 things to remember. 1, I defined what services marketing is, what my scope is, my responsibilities. 2, I talked about how it was similar and different from product marketing. And then lastly, made the business case for services marketing. So big key takeaways here is that what I actually do, my responsibilities are very similar to product marketing. The how services is run, the business of services is quite a bit different than products. And then business case for services marketing, huge value add to your organization. You can charge a premium, stuff you can differentiate, stuff like that. Also important to know that if none of your competitors in your market are doing this yet, now is a great opportunity to own your story, or else maybe a competitor jumps in, they own their story, and they already start positioning themselves in that field. So those are my 3 key takeaways. And before I take questions, again, please connect with me. My LinkedIn's up there, my email, Twitter. I'm never on Twitter, but if you want some followers, I'll happily follow you back. But feel free to reach out. I'll be around the rest of today as well if I don't get to your question.
Awesome. That's great. Test. Oh, awesome. I think in every company I've been at, I don't think we've marketed services well enough after seeing that. So thanks for that. That was really good. Okay, got a couple questions for you. So question number 1 is, do you align services marketing effort with product marketing effort? An example, packaging, for example.
Yes, excellent question. And yes, we do that. I work really closely with my product peers, and basically what we found is, to work around our sales comp structure is that we can start packaging a lot of our services with a product purchase. So if someone buys an employee survey tool, that organization may not know the best practices of how to roll that out. Oh, we have a service for that. So we just roll it right into the cost of that product. And the messaging around that is definitely the value prop of, hey, we got this great solution that's going to help you streamline your employee surveys, but B, we're going to make sure that you're doing it right and getting the most value out of that product.
Awesome. Product marketers often have a product manager counterpart to work with. Who is that equivalent counterpart for services?
Yeah, so I covered this real quick, but it's typically a portfolio manager role, and they're very, very rare. So even like for a 15,000 employee organization, we are just rolling out the portfolio manager roles. It probably won't be built out for another year or 2 years. So that's typically the equivalent of a product manager role. What I've had to do in the meantime, I've had to make relationships with VPs of our different services organizations. I've worked directly with business owners. So again, you don't have a direct correlation, which makes things very difficult when it comes to managing your calendar and managing meetings and just having a ton of different stakeholders that you have to work with.
Can you talk more about sales comp plans for services?
Yeah, so
versus product.
Versus product, yeah. So for us at UKG, I know this isn't the same way at all organizations, but our sales organization only gets compensated for reoccurring revenue. So we price our products on a PEPM, a per employee per month charge, and so that is what they get compensated on, and we want to encourage them to sell more recurring revenue products. So they made that change probably 5 or 6 years ago. We were an on-prem company like back beyond the day, so services was our moneymaker. But now services is a loss leader, and so they don't really want sales selling it, or they don't really want to compensate sales for selling it because already we're losing money on it. But they do want sales selling ARR, or things that generate recurring revenue for us. I don't know if that answers the question, or if you want more specifics on sales comp plans. But there are ways around it. Again, bundling services in with product ARR is one way, or turning services into a more recurring subscription type thing has also been successful for us, so ways around it.
Cool. Is there an equivalent product roadmap for services?
Yes. Yeah,
What's
exactly. It's not huge, so I try to incorporate our services roadmap stuff with the product stuff. And I find that a lot of the services stuff could be internal, so I keep an internal roadmap available for our sales organization who wants to understand, hey, when is this experience going to be unified? When's that? Yada, yada. So again, usually maybe 1 or 2 slides actually gets incorporated into the product roadmap because we try to keep those a little bit shorter, but yeah.
Okay. An interesting one there, they talk about how they feel they do a really good job at telling the services story during the onboarding phase, but how can they do a better job of doing that during the prospect phase?
Yeah, so this is something, our services story is what we lean into at UKG. So we don't talk about, when we roll up into a prospect phase, we don't talk about products probably until the 3rd or 4th meeting, a lot of our sales reps. So they really highlight they lead with our customer experience. Hey, we have a wonderful customer experience. This means for, hey, Betty payroll, you're not going to be struggling to close out payroll, that has a very hard deadline on a Monday. You're not going to be worrying about that, staying up late worrying about that, because we're going to be here for you. So we really lean into those pain points, and a lot of times, especially in our industry, we have some huge players, I'm not going to name names, who are notorious for not having good service, and so a lot of our customers are coming off of those solutions, and they've had a terrible experience. So we lead with that. That is one of our primary differentiators as an organization. Tips beyond that, it's definitely a culture shift for sales. If your sales organization is used to selling more features and functionality, getting them to take a step back and telling the experience story is a bit of a leg lift. We're undergoing that transformation with about half of our sales organization right now. They're learning, and they really like it, but they still lean back on features and functionality.
Nice. One more question. Mm-hmm. How is services marketing different than solutions marketing? In particular, the person said that often there's sales reps selling specific solutions to solve a particular problem, for example.
Yeah, good question. So we just reorged our product marketing organization about a year ago, and I actually report into our solutions marketing team within our broader product marketing organization. So again, we covered our solutions marketing team charter is basically we sell multiple products at UKG, so we cover all of our products, all of our messaging and positioning are usually at the brand level, at the UKG brand level. Services is one of those things. Our customer experience is the same across products. So that's one of the things that that falls under solutions marketing. But yeah, it's in a sense, I think solutions marketing kind of sits on top of product marketing, and that's how we've organized our product marketing organization. But we all roll into one product marketing VP.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, Rachel.
Yeah, awesome. Yep. Thank you.
Everyone give it up for Rachel. Oh, I'll take that, actually. Thanks. All right. So I can introduce your next speaker. Next speaker is me. Funny. Great. So I'm going to kick off this presentation. So I guess I'll first start by introducing myself. I'm not sure if I've done that yet today, but my name's Jason. I'm the Director of Product Marketing at Clue, and Clue is a competitive enablement platform. Just show of hands, who here knows what competitive enablement is? Who here feels they know what it means? Okay, it's about what I expected. But yeah, it's great to see. It's interesting. I would say maybe about a third of the room knows. But today what I'm going to be talking about is how we're going about building our category narrative at Clue, and how we're actually thinking about creating a category of competitive enablement. So, gotta make sure I got this. Okay, so first thing is, don't worry, this is not another presentation about why you all need to go out and create a category. In fact, there's plenty of reasons why someone here wouldn't want to go out and create a category, and I think it's talked about a lot as like the strategy everyone needs to do. But it might not be right for everyone. There's plenty of reasons why you do not need to go out and build a category, right? It's a big, big effort. I think, I asked that question off the top. This was actually a post by Pep Laha last week. If anyone knows who Pep is, he posted this question and he said, do you even know what competitive enablement actually means? And we were pretty happy with 1/3. But it just goes to show that it takes a lot of effort to introduce like a new term and a new category into a market, right? And it just goes to show that it takes a long time, and it's a big effort. It's a big strategic effort to undertake as a company. And so, while you may be deciding as a business to create a new category, redefine a category, niche down, create a subcategory, you might actually be trying to do all three, or have done all three at some point. I think what happens is when people start to talk about category creation, or any one of these three, they kind of get bogged down. It gets a little murky in terms of, it's just this conversation like, are we creating a category? Is it the right thing? Are we actually creating a subcategory? What is this? And it's actually not really the question you should be asking, and not really the conversation you have. What everyone needs to be doing first is everyone needs to have a category narrative, right? I don't know if anyone here follows Andy Raskin or like Chris Lockhead, or read any of the books like Play Bigger or Niche Down or anything like that. Anything that has to do with like category creation or some form of it. Andy Raskin talks about the old game versus the new game. And he's one of the thought leaders when it comes to category narratives. But your category narrative is like your point of view. It's your vision, your mission as a company, and it's your take. I love the idea of it's your point of view on the market they operate in. And so it's your take on what is the old game, what's wrong with the way that things are done today, and what is the new game that you need to create. I really like this quote. You need to change the way that people think, and if you can change the way they think, you can change their buying behavior. This is something we're thinking a lot about right now at Clue. And again, this isn't specific to category creation. It's the company that best frames the problem has the best chance of winning the category that they play in, whether it's a new one they're creating or not. Winning companies market the problem and the solution. So when we're thinking about marketing campaigns and what our team is going to be doing, we are thinking a lot now of like, are we out there enough marketing the problem that exists today? Right? And it's a good question to ask yourself. Are we constantly out there marketing the problem? Because it's just as important, if not more. I really love this quote from the former VP of marketing at HubSpot. I'll read the whole thing, this is great. Let me be clear, I do not think you have to create a category, I think that you have to name the enemy. And so inbound marketing became a category. But with or without the category, we still needed to name outbound marketing and irrelevant ads as the enemy. What's essential to name is what you're fighting against, not the category you're in. We did a really good job nailing the enemy, so we didn't go out there saying we have to create a category. And I think that's cool. That's kind of like the summary of what I'm talking about today is like, we get bogged down this idea of are we creating a category, subcategory, whatever. But if you create a strong, compelling category narrative that you all get behind, a lot of times, whether you create a category, a subcategory, or whatever, will kind of come out of that. And you will find yourself being kind of propelled into, hey, our narrative really doesn't work in the category we're in, so we're naturally going to have to create a new one in order for it to resonate and work. So how to create your category narrative. So this is something we're doing now at Clue. And I wanted to make this kind of as practical and tactical as possible. So I just want to walk through the process that we're actually going through to create our own category narrative. So the first step for us was discovery workshops. So we wanted to get out and we wanted to determine what our category narrative was. The first thing was to start to have these workshops internally. And we were really focusing on these 4 key questions. Who are our customers? What problems do they have? So start off with who are our customers. The big thing here is, and in these workshops, we are not trying to find out the one. We are trying to gather all of these ideas from our teams. And so we met with, for example, we had a workshop with our marketing team. Actually, we had multiple. We also had a workshop with our executive team. And we went through these 4 main questions. So who are our customers? What problems do they have today? Again, not looking for just one problem. We're trying to get everything out there, all these ideas. What are FRO2s? If anyone doesn't know the term FRO2, it's from a book called Play Bigger, but it's the same idea as old game, new game. So from the old way to the new way. So FRO2 is essentially, because there's not necessarily just one FRO2, you're trying to throw all of them out there and be like, what are these possible old game, new game combinations that we can think of as it relates to our product? Or actually, product is not the answer here. This is your category narrative. So it's not about your product. It is about your category, right? What are you hoping by creating or by promoting this category? And based on your point of view, where do you see people going from to? And what will the world look like if this exists, right? So it's trying to say, hey, if we're successful in kind of getting people to think the way that we think and creating this new thing, what will the world look like? So what we actually did is we just created a deck. So for every one of these workshops, we had a deck like this. We had all the questions laid out there. And so you can see for this example here, we were like, what are the FRO2s when it comes to competitive enablement? One of them, for example, for us was product marketers today. You know, someone had referred to it as like deck monkeys. We were thinking of it as deck jockeys moving to a valued strategic partner within the revenue team. So examples of all the things that we were tossing out there around what these FRO2s might look like. The next thing is to write it down. So this is where you actually start to write out your narrative. And it's essentially like a story. There's a part 1 and part 2. And for us, part 1 was all about defining what the old way or the old game, what's wrong with the world today. So defining who our heroes are, right? Who is the hero? Who is the kind of main target persona we're talking to, or personas? What is the main problem we're trying to solve, right? So doesn't have to just be one, but you are refining your list down now to the main 1-2 main problems that you're trying to solve today, or things that you're trying to fix. What's wrong with the way that it's being solved today, and what's the cost if they continue doing it this way? Part 2 is what is the new thing? What are we introducing? How is it different? How will the new way solve the category's problem? And what will the world look like when you accomplish your mission? Again, you can see the example here is the Word doc we created. We went through about 10 different versions of this Word document, and we were going through, and for every version you can see here, lots of comments on the side. It was something that we shared with everyone who was involved in this process. And when you think about this idea of getting feedback, like it's very important to get feedback at this point. When you have a written version that internally you feel comfortable with, you got to get it in front of customers. You got to get it in front of your prospects. Pat, if Pat's in the room, Pat, customer of ours, I actually shared our narrative with Pat, at least one of the versions, and got his feedback. Products, customers, influencers in your space. And then the final thing for us was putting it in front of our executive team. Because your executive needs to really be bought into this. If your executive is not bought into this mission, I'll talk about the idea of gravitational pull in a little bit, but if they're not bought into your narrative, then it's just not going to work. You need their buy-in, and so they should be involved in the process. They're involved in the workshop process. And then when we went to them with a finished version, it actually looked like this. So I'm going to present to you now what our finished narrative was, the same as I presented it to them in the executive meeting. So introducing the clue category narrative. That actually looks like a trash can. It's supposed to be a popcorn emoji, but it actually looks like a trash can. Didn't look like that when I put it there, but that's funny. Okay, so this is the narrative. So this is 3.5 minutes, and it's funny, when I present this, it's almost awkward at the end where you feel like you have to wait for people to applaud. Don't applaud. That's not the point of this. It's not like a performance, but this is just the narrative that we created. Okay. You're losing ground to a competitor. You've been outmaneuvered, outplayed, outmatched. There's no worse feeling in business. There are over 200 million companies in the world with new competitors entering your market every day, many moving at exhausting speeds, all coming for a piece of your market share. In 10 years, 40% of today's market-leading companies will be replaced by firms we haven't yet heard of because they can't compete. Beating the competition and how you do it is more important than ever. Your competitive strategy should be seen as a key lever of revenue, not a back office function. It impacts every department in your company, beginning with sales, but quickly expanding to product, marketing, customer success, and your executive team. But the way companies compete today is broken. It's hard to keep up with the velocity of information about your competitors. New offers, new products, changes in campaigns, pricing and discounts, messaging, accounts are won and lost, awards, key hires, customer feedback. It's an impossible amount of work to do manually. And even with technology to help collect this information automatically, raw intel lacking context is a compass without an arrow, or worse, a compass pointing in the wrong direction. People don't want press releases, reviews, and social posts dropped in their lap. It's only noise your teams have to sift through and therefore will simply ignore. They need practical insights and direction on how to actually beat the competition. And while organizations continue investing millions into collecting and analyzing data, they still use yesterday's tools to create and deliver competitive content. Slide decks, spreadsheets, Google Docs are spread all over the place. Content quickly becomes outdated because it's impossible to keep track of. It's not dynamic or digestible in a way that's relevant to the intended audience in your company. So people fend for themselves, forming half-baked strategies without a clear picture of how to beat the competition. And while your competitive program carries on as something to manage versus something that can have a real impact on business, your company continues losing ground to competitors. Until now. Introducing competitive enablement. Competitive enablement is about delivering actionable insights and content to the people that need it across your company. It means not only collecting competitive information, but translating it into something that can help the teams around you win. It's about eliminating noise and delivering only relevant competitive intel, creating more time to uncover actual insights and create content that leads your team to victory. We're talking differentiated messaging and guidance for your revenue team, product comparisons and recommendations for your product team, and contextual data and insights for your executive team. All easily digestible, centralized, up-to-date, and delivered in the platforms they're already using. It's a collaborative approach that inspires customer-facing teams to contribute insights from the field and an entire organization to contribute valuable feedback. Making competitive enablement an essential strategic function that impacts everyone across the organization, allowing your competitive strategists to elevate their role within the organization and your company to keep stealing market share from the competition. It's the difference between competing and competing to win. Cool. So that was the narrative. So nobody wants to clap? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Literally just kidding. That was a joke. So what happens now, right? So we went through and, for what it's worth, that narrative, that is something we're going to evolve over time. And it is something that we're going to continuously perfect. I'm not saying it's a masterpiece by any means. But what do we do now, right? Our work's not done. We've written this thing. We've got internal approval. Our executive team's on board with it. We presented it to the whole company in a company stand-up and it had a lot of really great feedback. So that felt good as a team, but job has really just started, right? So when you think about these narratives in action, it has to become something that impacts every part of your business, your go-to-market, your whole company. So it impacts how you hire people. It impacts the investors that you look for and how you want to align, finding people that align with your vision. Employee alignment, it tells your employees how to act and guides their decisions. Product development is a big one. If you create your category narrative, your vision, your product managers and your engineers need to be bought into that so that your roadmap can align with that. You don't want to start building a product that has nothing to do or doesn't align with your vision. And your brand. Your narrative is not branding and positioning, but it does definitely inform it. One big risk, I love that they talk about this in the book Play Bigger, but it's this idea of natural gravity, right? As a company, you might have an idea or a vision, your own narrative. But what happens with this natural gravity is that it's easy to let pressure from customers, your sales team, or wherever else steer your product off track. I think everyone's been there, where you have this big strategic vision, but big customer wants this feature, right? Might not align with it, but we're going to go out and build it anyway. A solid narrative is your best defense against the direct gravitational pull. Before you condition the market, you first need to condition your company. And so one of the things that we're starting to do now is this competitive enablement certification. So took that long narrative, and in my opinion, I think one of the improvements we can make is shortening it. It's a little long. But this document here on the left is essentially a cheat sheet that condenses it down to the key points. Even that, I think we need to distill down to be something shorter. But with that, we've created a certification program, and that's just a video recording of me going through the narrative. But this is something we want to certify everyone in the company on, not just sales, CS, our customer-facing teams, but marketing, engineering, product, like everyone in the company should go through this. And this is something I did when I was at Uberflip, where we went through, again, a similar narrative process, and we certified everyone in the company using a similar certification. We talk about competitive enablement. It's not a new term for Clue. We're building this category of competitive enablement. But this narrative now needs to weave its way into our pitch deck, right? When we're talking to prospects and customers, this language and this vision needs to work its way into our materials. Our website. So we're just about to do a lot of work on our website to make sure that our narrative weaves its way into there. But you can even see today, a lot of our language, competitive enablement is in a big part of everything we do. Competitive enablement there, the competitive enablement show that we launched just earlier this year, I believe. The competitive enablement summit that we started in 2021. So you can see for us, competitive enablement is something that we are definitely working to make happen. A couple of parting thoughts around things that we're thinking about as a team as we start to build this category and say, we now have this narrative, how do we take it to market? One thing we're thinking a lot of is how do we repeat this again and again and again out in the market, right? Go back to the idea of how do we focus on educating people on the problems. Problem-focused campaigns, something we're thinking about. You'll probably start to see if you do follow anything that Clue does. It's us going out there and saying, how can we do better at educating people on the problem? We want to make competitive enablement managers happen. Competitive enablement managers in the room, raise your hand. Brandon. But this is something that, this is like a metric for us. We want to make sure that, we really want to look at how many competitive enablement managers are starting to prop their heads up in the market. That for us, it's a good indicator that we're starting to really land in terms of our narrative out there and educating people on the importance of, this title. And when I asked our CEO the other day, just, hey, how confident are you about this, competitive enablement manager title? He's like, not only do I think it should be that everyone has a competitive enablement manager title, he's like, but I believe it will. And I think if you look a couple of years in the future, you're going to see way more competitive enablement managers. So Brandon won't be the only one. Celebrate the success of our customers. This is something we're thinking a lot about now in our marketing. Not only celebrating success of customers, which is obviously a given, but when their success is aligned with our narrative, how can we use that customer proof out in the market, whether it's customer quotes that talk about how they were elevated within their role, right? Or where they're talking about how they went from having a ton of intel to actually being able to distill it down to insights and adding context to help their team. So stuff that we're looking for. And then influencing influencers. Talk a lot to analysts, as a product marketing team or someone who's kind of taken on the responsibility of helping promote this category. You really need to be out there in the market talking about it, sharing your narrative, coming to conferences like this and talking about this point of view that we have. So that's it. That's my presentation. Hopefully you found that helpful. Hopefully it was tactical enough to give you some takeaways. But thanks so much. All right. I'll tee up my own questions. So what books do you recommend for product marketers looking to grow and change thinking in general? I'll take it as that. You mentioned a few throughout the presentation. Yeah, so a couple that I really like are Play Bigger. There's Category Creation, one that was done by Anthony Kanata and Nick Mehta was a big one in there. Niche Down is another great one. There's, let me see. I love one, it's called, no, I can't think of it right off the top of my head. It's a good question. How about this? Whoever asked me that question, I'm going to think more about it, and I'm going to come to you, and I'm going to answer that later. Raise your hand if you ask that question. I'm going to find you. Yeah. But I think play bigger. I think niche down. I think, there's so many good books on like brand storytelling and all of that. But I think there's, I'll follow up with you after. Great question, though. How do you differentiate the competitive enablement category from competitive intelligence? Great question. I think when we think about competitive intelligence, right, we think of, I even think when you think of someone who's in competitive intelligence, say in a role, like you think of someone who is in, or at least the way that we think of the competitive intelligence manager, for example, traditionally it's someone who is collecting information on competitors. Right? That's the way that we look at it. You're collecting as much intel as you can. You are out there collecting and making sure that you're not missing a beat when it comes to what your competitors are out there doing in the space. When we think of competitive enablement, we actually think of it as the combination of competitive intelligence and sales enablement. Right? So one, it's knowing what your competitors are doing, being able to collect intel and know what they're up to. Right? But it's also being able to enable people with that information. So making sure that they have the tools they need to go out and differentiate competitors. If it's a sales team on a call, make sure your product team has what they need to know what to put on the roadmap. And so it's really having, yes, the ability to collect competitive information, but it's also the ability to wrap that in context. So to be able to take that information and translate it into something that's actually helpful for the people you're enabling. So hopefully that helps. Percentage of time that CE managers should spend thinking about sales versus the rest of the stakeholders in the organization. So it's basically for a competitive enablement manager, how much time should you spend thinking about sales? That's a great question. I think every organization is different, but one of the things that we think about at Clue is that when you think about an organization, the people or the customer of competitive enablement managers that need it probably the most, or the ones who need it the most, I would say the ones who are kind of asking for it the most would be sales. Right? So, and I think that's naturally why a lot of competitive enablement managers will start by enabling the sales team because they need that information. They're boots on the ground. They're out there selling every day, and so they need that information. But I do think that there's a percentage, and I think that as you start to prove what you can do to the sales team, there starts to be other parts of the organization that you can enable. Right? There's product. There's strategy teams, or like your executive team. CS is another stakeholder. Brandon actually works a lot with our CS team to make sure that they're enabled, and they even have their own different battle cards that we create for them. So in terms of percentage, I don't really have a great answer for percentage, but I do think that, I think for the most part, the majority of your effort, at least in the beginning, is going to be enabling sales. I think you can get a lot of quick wins there, but then from that, the whole organization needs to be enabled with competitive insights. How should you be plugging competitive enablement into existing product marketing and enablement functions? How should you be plugging competitive enablement into existing product marketing and enablement functions? Well, I think competitive enablement really comes into everything. So when you think of on the sales team, like our like battle cards, for example, are a key part of how your sales team actually goes about selling. So competitive enablement, say from a simple perspective of battle cards, so much of sales enablement from a product marketing perspective is arming your sales team with messaging. It's arming them with content. And your differentiation, your competitive differentiation is weaved into every bit of that. So yeah, battle cards are one tool to be able to enable your sales team. But like when I look at what Brandon does, so much of what the information and the way that he is able to take intel and distill it down into actual competitive insight, that works its way into content, works its way into actual external content that the sales team shares. It works its way into whether he hops on a deal and actually helps them like co-sell or work with them on very strategic accounts. So it's a big part. On the competitive side, on the marketing side, competitive enablement, like as a product marketing team, we are taking what we know about competitors and the information that we're constantly collecting, and we have to translate that into something that's useful for our marketing team to be able to use on the website and messaging, to be able to use in our campaigns to make sure that we're differentiated in the way that our whole go-to-market. On the product side, it's constantly, when you think of how product marketing can help drive the roadmap, it's for us, it's being able to again, take what we know of monitoring the competitive landscape and translating that into something that's useful for the product team, right? How can that impact your roadmap? How can you make sure you're making a product that is, or helping Clue be differentiated, and make sure the roadmap is putting us on that path? So, yeah. How are we doing on time? Okay, got plenty of time. What do you do about a CEO who wants to create his own category narrative by himself for your product? I think it's a really good question. Actually, I want to ask that question because it is a really good question, and I've been in this situation in companies. I think early on in companies, I do think like your category narrative is going to be shaped and influenced by your CEO. Like even at Clue, and Jason, our CEO, a lot of even the inspiration that went into this narrative, he shared with me like 6 Evernote documents. When we started this, he was like, hey, here's everything I wrote for the last like 5 years, right? Like hopefully this helps. And it totally did. Like I think so much of your narrative, especially if you're in like an early stage startup with a CEO who's built this product, they had that vision. When I was actually, reading a lot about this category narrative concept, and it talked about one of the big parts of your category narrative is that you're supposed to give people the same aha moment that your founders had, right? So especially in early stage startup, your founders, like they made that product because they saw a better way than the way things were being done today. And so they had an aha moment and a light bulb went off in their head, and you need to help translate that and turn that into something so everyone else can have that same aha moment. But anyways, if their narrative doesn't necessarily align, I would say the biggest thing is going through those workshops, like making it a process where multiple people are involved, right? So you bring in the executive team, and they're all there in the room. Like when we had our executive workshops, it was interesting to see the differences between what the executive thought was important in our narrative and what the actual, say, marketing team thought was important in our narrative, because the marketing team was focused a lot on the people that we market to in most of our campaigns, right? Marketing to product marketers, marketing to sales leaders. And when we got into the executive conversation, it was more about what do senior leaders care about, right? And that's where things like losing market share started to come in, things that aren't top of mind for, say, a product marketer, but someone on the executive team, they're like, I am this persona, and these are the things I care about. So it's important to get everyone's perspective. But I think as long as you make it a more of a group process and you involve the whole executive team, I do think that's a way to make sure that just like one person's opinion doesn't trump everything. In messaging, how do you balance defining the problem and harping on it when potential customers are desperately searching for a solution? So in messaging, how do you balance defining the problem, and harping on it? So how do you not like overdo defining the problem, I think is how I take that. That's a good question. I think in the way that you deliver it, it is a very good question. I'll be honest, it's not something that we've thought about. Like, hey, are we potentially overdoing the definition of this problem? Are we almost like talking down to someone in a way where it's like, but I think the approach for us, and at least the way we're going to go about it in our marketing, is when we are out there promoting this problem and trying to help drive home the fact like, hey, this is a problem everyone should care about, I think it'll have to align with your company brand and your personality, but we try to approach it from more of like a funny aspect. So a lot of these campaigns that we're going to be rolling out are kind of taking these different problems and helping translate them in a way that's really almost using analogies and helping people understand like, hey, if you saw this same problem in a different context, what would that actually look like? And doing it in a way that's sort of fun. But it is a good question. I guess if anything, it's a good thing for people to think about is, okay, we want to make sure we educate people on the problem, but we don't want to like ram it down their throat to the point where they're like, hey, I get it. Okay. For a multi-product company, do you have one single narrative for the company or individual narratives for each project or product? I think that's a good point. I think that your company has its own vision, has its mission. I think it depends on how differentiated the different products are. Right, so I've been at a multi-product company before, but at that point we hadn't created a narrative per se. But if we did, I think it's the question of, do all of these products come together to create a great story? Right. So one, is it the same persona that's using them? Are they all in a different way solving the same problem? Versus are they all completely separate? And in the cases where they're really completely separate, they're not very yeah, they're not very kind of aligned at all, then I would imagine that each one would need its own narrative. But I think in general, this is where it's like you don't want to get into labels too much of like we only have one narrative. The point of having a narrative is if you feel there's the old game and the new game, you could have that for a product. Right? You could take that same concept and apply it to a different, like a feature release that you're working on. But it's basically saying what is the old way that things were done, what is the old game, and what is the new game that we're going, and the change that we're trying to make happen with this thing. And you can take that concept and apply it to even a feature release. So I think that, yeah, it's not to say that you can't do it for multiple products. What's your press strategy for promoting this category? You mentioned influencers. Any additional detail? Honestly, that's something we still have to figure out. Our press strategy for us right now, yeah, that's one of the things we're starting to think about. You are actually looking at a company that's in the middle of doing this thing. And so we are, as a company, still figuring it out. But I think like press and influencing the influencers is like a big part of trying to create something out there in the world that never existed before, a brand new category. So it is something we are thinking a lot about. I think that covers all the questions. Everyone, thanks so much. I really appreciate you. Thanks. Whew. Oh, right. I'm introducing.
Product marketing has grown to become one of the key pillars within an organization. And yet, a well-known frustration point within the community is that most of our colleagues still don't understand the daily responsibilities of a product marketer. But we wanted to break this cycle and shine a light on the incredible value that this role brings to the table, which is why we've designed a brand new book with this exact goal in mind. Product Marketing Misunderstood is guaranteed to equip you with the first-hand knowledge, techniques, and stories you need to amplify your role, establish your authority, and elevate your strategic value.
Okay. All right. Can everyone hear me okay? All right. An Italian with a body microphone. There's going to be a lot of gesturing. First row, you've been warned. Jason did a great job introducing me, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Matt Moretti, Senior Product Marketing Manager at a company called The Predictive Index out of Boston, Massachusetts. I live in a town called Plymouth, which is right near Cape Cod. I have a beautiful wife, Colleen, a 1.5-year-old daughter, and my wife is actually 9 months pregnant now. So, yes, I didn't do it. I'll tell her you clap, though. So if you see me sprinting off stage, you know why. My phone is on like extra loud. I told her it's just a short 4-hour drive and I'll be home for the birth. So we're not here to talk about me, though. We're here to talk about you. This is you. You're a product marketer. You kick ass. Okay? You got your checklist. You're doing a great job, okay? You're building your GTM slides. This thing is not working. You're making your MVP battle card. You got your job to be done, interviews. You're hosting your launch retro, what went right, what went wrong. You're finalizing your messaging. You're flying, things are great. Or are they? You're not getting the influence that you want. You're not getting things done. No one's listening to you. You're putting in all this hard work, but nothing is happening the way that you expect it to, even though you're very, very good at your job. You're in an impossible situation. We were here last month at Product Misunderstood. No one knows what we do. And you have to do incredible influence to 4 different audiences. I stole this from PMA. I don't have to pay royalties on this, right? Okay. So you're influencing product. You're helping them build what the market wants. And you're trying to speak their language. You're influencing customer success. They're on the front lines dealing with customers all the time. We're listening to the voice of the customer and we're updating the product based on what they want. You're influencing sales. How do they meet their number? How do they meet their number? How can you help them? And you're doing your best to influence marketing too. Those MQLs, those PQLs, those helping the demand gen team get done what they need to get done, including the right messaging for their ads. It's a very, very difficult, ambiguous spot to be in, so I'm not surprised that you may feel like your influence and your strategy work is not being listened to. You're managing out, you're managing up, you're managing across, you're managing down. Everyone in this room is extremely talented and has a breadth of marketing, education, and knowledge, and it can be really, really difficult. And then some days you're just like, oh shit, I can't get anything done, I'm burned out, I'm not doing well. What can help me? This is you. You're drowning. I'm your life preserver. I'm here to tell you about trust. And this, I'm telling you, these are things that you've heard before, but no one's ever put them in your face like this. I want to remind you how critical this is, not only to your career, but to your life. That's a big promise to make with my talk, and I hope I can back it up. Here's why trust matters. You needed to get things done. You needed to cut through organizational red tape. You needed to manage up, down, and across. You needed to align your teams. Here's the most important one. You needed to debate ideas and decisions without fear. You needed to hold people accountable. Hey, why the hell didn't you turn that into me? You needed it for your mental health. This has come to the fore lately. People who work at high trust companies experience 74% less stress. Increasing trust decreases stress. Second fact, millennials are 22 times more likely to work for a company with a high trust culture. I'm an older millennial. Matt, no way, you look so young. You should have seen me before kids, baby face, I'm telling you. I'm aged. Companies with high trust workplaces perform 2 times better. We're talking Fortune 500 companies, 2 times better than the general market in terms of earnings. Trust is a big deal. And that's why I'm up here talking about it. The website betterup.com defines trust as credibility plus reliability plus intimacy. I'm saying it in a different way. I think it comes down to 2 really simple things, your attitude and your aptitude. And I'm going to go into why both are important. Today's talk is the no bullshit introduction. How'd I do? We're doing okay? We're having fun? Good. Good. I'm having fun too. No bullshit. It's over. We made it through. Your team's trust ceremony. I'm going to talk about a trust ceremony you can bring to your company. It's not hokey. It really works. 3 ways to gain someone's trust in minutes. That's your attitude. 3 ways to gain someone's trust in months. That's your aptitude. And we're going to get into motivations and behavioral drives 101. I'm not going to try to sell you the predictive index, but if it happens, so be it. So your trust ceremony. My product marketing team at PI, we started a trust ceremony that bled out into the sales and marketing organization and then bled out into the entire company, and it really works. We repeat at the start of key meetings the trust triangle. This is adapted from Patrick Lencioni's book, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. You may have seen this triangle before. Before our key team meetings, we pick someone from our team to recite this, and it's 5 parts. Trust is the foundation of any good team. With trust comes a lack of suspicion. We assume positive intent about what our teammates want and what they're saying to us. And with that foundation of trust, you can have healthy conflict. That's what this talk is all about. It's healthy conflict. Fighting out hearts and minds, and just having an open and honest discussion about your way, the other person's way, who has the data, who has the right of way, regardless of the outcome. Whether your idea won or lost, you disagree and you commit. You commit to the future together, to that next step. Then you hold each other accountable. Hey, we agreed to this. I know you didn't like it, but we agreed that we both do it, and we crush it together. You hold people accountable when you have that trust. And then lastly, you get results. Yay! We did it. That's the top of the triangle. We recite this before every key meeting. It might sound silly, but it's not. Because those first 2 bars, trust and conflict, changes everything for you. So here's my trust ceremony ideas for you. You can do this if you want to. Here, you can go through a framework, like I just went through. Pick out a framework and run it through with your team. Icebreakers. Everyone loves icebreakers. What kind of candy bar would you be if you wanted to be a candy bar? If you could have one superpower, what would it be? It's silly, it's fun. You know what that CTO wants to be a Snickers because of XYZ. So when you're in a conflict with that person later, you're not in a conflict with someone you never met before, you're in a conflict with someone whose favorite song is Red, Red Wine. It makes the difference, I'm telling you, if you know a little bit something about the people you are engaging with. Repeat a slogan or phrase, dive into an org culture item. You all probably have org culture items. It's in your handbook, it's on your internal site, what have you. Go through one of them before every meeting and just remind each other why you're here. A rose and a thorn. You can say, hey, I'm feeling rosy about X, but I'm feeling thorny about Y. Just say what is going right or going wrong at work. And then, of course, everyone's favorite trust ceremony. We're 2 hours out from the open bar, folks. Happy hours and events. Nothing better. And the pandemic robbed us of this. But going out with your coworkers and bitching about work, it's one of the best ways to build trust. It is. I swear, it is. We're building relationships with teammates. That's why these ceremonies matter. Okay, I'm going to get into how to gain someone's trust in minutes. This is your attitude. This is those instant things that you can do to gain someone's trust. And I'm not telling you to manipulate. I'm not telling you to be fake. I'm actually telling you to be more real than you ever have been before. 61% can instantly spot a phony. Don't be fake. Don't be fake. I'm telling you to be more real than ever. Be real. That's the first tip. Really simple, but it's really powerful. When I went to buy a diamond ring for my wife many years ago, I walked up, I said, Kim, the jeweler's name is Kim. I shouldn't use her real name. I walked up, I said, Kim, I'm here to buy that ring for Colleen. She says, okay, but I gotta let you know, I'm so hungover right now. I said, tell me everything, leave out no details. She's like, I'm in my early 40s, I just got divorced. When you get divorced, it's like high school all over again. I'm going out, I'm drinking, I'm having a good time. So we had a great discussion about her night out. We had a lot of fun. So when it came time for her to lay out those 10 diamonds in front of me, I had the little monocle thing. I trusted her. We have a relationship now. She wouldn't screw me over. I don't think so. But she was real with me. And I think when someone's real with you, you instantly respect it and recognize it and trust them more. The second tip is listen and ask questions. 2 ears, 1 mouth. We've all heard that. It's really true. Be interested and be interesting. Have a real conversation. When someone's like, how was your weekend? It was good. How was your weekend? It was good. Great. Open up the 16 on the PDF. Like, let's have a conversation. My mother-in-law came over. She made another comment about the couch and about that we left the toys out and it's a mess. Be real. Tell people what actually happened to you, and they'll tell you what actually is happening to them, and you're instantly forming a bond. And then lastly, you're going to find common ground. If you're interested in someone, you will find common ground. I promise you. My father-in-law, his name's Dennis. He's as blue collar as they come. He's been a welder for 30 years. He's in the union. I could plop him in this room of SaaS marketers, and he would be everyone's best friend because he's going to ask you questions until he finds common ground. Now you're in a conspiracy. Now you're friends. Ask questions until you find common ground. Now you have that bit of relationship with that person. So when the time comes to influence them for the launch plan, you can do it. You can do it, and it's easier that way. Okay. Healthy conflict is the ultimate goal. Let's get to aptitude. Everyone here is really strong at this. This is how to gain someone's trust in months. Be yourself. Show them with your skills how strong you can be in this product marketing role. Never miss a deadline. Never break a promise. Never miss a deadline. I have an asterisk here. You can renegotiate these things. Of course, priorities change. You get a fire drill from the CEO, whatever. Things are always changing up here, right? Never miss a deadline. Renegotiate if you have to, but never make a promise. Never break a promise. Just tell them, hey, I promised it Tuesday, I'm going to get it to you Wednesday. It's usually not a problem. But just be a really reliable person. That's what that tip is. The second tip is back up your strategy with data. You're going to be shocked. You can throw me in a Zoom room and I'm just going to talk. But when I back up my strategy, what I'm recommending to the team with data, it shows that I'm taking the steps to prove that my recommendation is the right one. Back up your strategy with data and always do it. Lastly, adapt your style to their motivations and drives. This is all about what my company does, but this is a universal truth. Adapt your style to the person's motivations and drives. Let's dive into that one a little bit more. But remember, pair these tips with the previous tips. Do it consistently. Do it all the time. You will succeed. You will have a bigger impact as a product marketer. Behavioral drives and motivations 101. What do they want to hear? How do they want to hear it? It's two things. What do they want to hear? How do they want to hear it? People tell you who they are, but we ignore it because we want them to be who we want them to be. Was that Sigmund Freud? Was that Marcus Aurelius? No, it was Don Draper. Season 4, episode 8, The Summer Man. Great quote. Love it. So, You ever feel like you have all your ducks in a row, you're having the meeting, this is it, I'm gonna get the stamp of approval, then off we go for the launch. You're pitching, you're doing the best, you have the data, you've been consistent, you ran it by your manager first, and now you're at your manager's manager and you're going for it, and then they just say, but why though? You're just not connecting, despite how close these two stick figures are sitting. You're just not connecting with the person. So this is me. This is me. I'm what's called a promoter in PI language. There's 17 different profiles. I'm a promoter. Everyone has 4 different drives within them. Dominance, extroversion, patience, and formality. I can collaborate or I can drive. I love to talk it out. I'm like almost off the freaking chart here on the B scale. Mostly, I like to have variety and I like to have flexibility. I don't like rules. This is an executive that I interact with often. Okay? This is an executive that I interact with often. This person, who shall not be named, is very dominant on the dominant scale. She is very low on the extroversion scale. So although I want to pop in an office and have a conversation and talk it through, she doesn't want that. She doesn't want me to stop by her office. She wants me to send her the agenda 72 hours in advance so she can think it through, so we don't have to have an instant conversation about it. So once again, I'm not here to sell you PI, but drop my name if you need to. I'll make it a commission. But anyway, all I'm saying is this formula, this calculus is going on in everyone you speak to. Everyone here lands on this scale somewhere. So think about who the person is, how they want to hear what you're about to tell them, and take that into consideration. So you paid for 6, but I'm going to give you 9. Don't ever say I wasn't generous. Here's 3 more trust building tips. Number 1, mea culpa. Be a stand-up person. Don't throw other people under the bus. We're all extremely talented. You don't make mistakes rarely, but when you do, you raise your hand and say, I effed up. And you solve it. Here's my solution to solve it. You know, it's not a big deal, but don't be someone that never admits fault. Instantly trust someone that says, I screwed up, here's how I'm going to fix it. Establish credibility. This is not bragging. Drop moments in conversation with people you're trying to influence about things you've done before that have succeeded. Talk about the launch 18 months ago that was successful. Talk about how you switched the color of the button on the landing page and I got 18% more conversions. Just drop that in the conversation. It's okay to establish your credibility when you're talking to someone else. Here's a fun one, and I think everyone can start doing this immediately. Positive gossip. When you're on a Zoom call, one-to-one with someone before everyone else jumps on, you say, I heard something about you. And say what? You say, I heard you're crushing it right now. I heard from Linda, who heard from Joe, that you are killing it in this role. Or just, it doesn't have, and once again, this is real, this is not fake, you're not making this up out of thin air, but you hear good things about your coworkers all the time. Imagine if you repeated it back to them and it came from you. They're going to feel so good about working with you, and when the time comes to have an influential decision, they're going to go for it with you because you've established this relationship. The joyful result. Boom. Results. You have trust, you can have conflict, commitment, accountability, and results, and you can succeed in your role as a product marketer more than you ever have before. As my very, very good friend Warren Buffett is known to say, trust is like the air we breathe. When it's present, nobody really notices. When it's absent, everyone notices. So that's my talk. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
I appreciate it.
That was awesome.
Thank you.
All right, going to toss you a couple questions. So,
Okay.
how do you gain trust with the product team and be a supportive thought leader, especially for a company who did not have product marketing before?
Yeah, so the best way is, as a team, we're always present. We're in those meetings, we're in those Scrum team meetings, we're in the roadmap planning. You know, we don't let them bring it to us. We're a voice at the table when the product team and the engineering team are talking about features and feature roadmap and things like that. Just get tight with them. And also, someone said in an earlier talk about the internal roadshow. We do internal roadshows all the time. Love an internal roadshow. It's going to shock you. I love doing internal roadshows. Love doing internal roadshows. I highly recommend taking your ideas, what your team does. Definitely, if you haven't done that as a product marketing team, go to every single team and say, here's what we do. Here's how you approach us, and here's how to work with us. I think that's a good way to establish trust with product.
Nice. This one's interesting. Never miss a deadline, in quotes. How do you navigate conversations with sales and CS when a target release date for a new product or feature is missed and you're the one being blamed?
Are you at fault? I mean, if unfortunately, you need to stand up for yourself, have that radical candor moment, and just say, hey, here's the situation that happened. The product marketing team was not at fault. Remove any judgment or bias from why they're upset with you, and just give it to them. Just give it to them straight. Once again, go back to that first tip, which to me is be real. Be as real as possible. Don't be fake. Don't dance around subjects, because that's going to cause even more trouble than if you just take on something head on. But sales is there. So when we talk about personality types, a lot of them are a certain personality type that they respect and want that conflict. And sometimes as a product marketer or someone with my pattern, it can be difficult to have that head-to-head the conflict, let's call it. So you have to find it within yourself to have that difficult conversation, because sales will respect you more if you go toe-to-toe with them.
How do you gain trust when you're remote? Is it any different?
So the tips I gave today are definitely things you can still do remote. One of the best times to take advantage is that awkward 90 seconds before the subject matter starts on a Zoom call. I'm telling you, you ask someone, how was your weekend? It's a wonderful chance to be real and tell them literally how your weekend was, and not just say good. Use that as a moment for bonding. If you take that 90 seconds with every person that you're on meetings with, and we're all in a ton of meetings because of remote, you'll feel yourself establishing more. Just learning one more thing about someone can make the difference for you.
This one's, obviously there are many times when trust is broken. So how do you, what recommendations do you have for repairing when trust is broken, both when you're the one who is breaking trust and another when someone has broken trust with you?
Yeah, this is a great question. And I'm going to sound like a broken record, because my advice here is you schedule a one-on-one meeting with the person and you have the conversation. An example from my role recently is a VP was having trouble with an IC. And I have good relationships with both of them, and I knew what was going on, and I was stuck in the middle. And they said, what should we do? Independently, they both said, what should we do to repair our relationship? And I said, you just have to have a one-on-one meeting and tell each other how you're feeling. Get it out there without shaming or hurting, and do your best to just say, here's how I'm feeling about you. Why are you doing this? And I have a strong feeling you'll be surprised by their response to you, because we take things personally a lot. A lot of times it has nothing to do with you, and you think it does. But when you talk to the person, hey, why are you so angry lately in meetings? Or whenever I have an opinion, you're always shooting it down. Why? The truth is probably a lot less about you than you think.
How do you build trust with teams that there's been a lot of historic tension with? The teams that you have just generally a lot of tension with?
Yeah, it can be tough when you're having constant tension with other teams in your company. I think you need to find a moments of levity, however you can, in the middle of a pandemic. Once again, I was talking about happy hours and making jokes about it, but really, when do you have a chance to go out for a drink or bowl? We just went out bowling a couple weeks ago as a team, and you can have some fun. You can watch them shoot a gutter ball, and they come back and they're laughing and you're laughing, and you're like, you see each other more as human beings outside of the Zoom screen, because in the Zoom screen it's just all business. So if you can find a way to see each other as human beings outside of the work context, I think you can kind of chip away at that ice that's been going on between the two squads.
Nice. How do you balance dominance against extroversion? Can you talk a little more about what situations you rely on credibility versus being the most aggressive voice?
Another good question. Everything is case by case here. It's hard to say. There's a blanket answer to when you want to be more dominant and when you don't. I'm watching the questions come up, so I'm distracted. It's got to be case by case. You have to pick your moments. You have to know your hills to die on. There's just some things in life and at work that you just got to let go to win the battle next time. So you can't always be on full tilt for your ideas. So it's completely case by case. You'll know the moment when it's time to be aggressive because you care very deeply about the issue at hand, or for the business, it's actually what you're suggesting is the right move, and that's when you can push on the gas a little bit on the aggressiveness.
Will product managers and product marketers ever be friends?
I think so. I think so. If you apply my 9 tips, you're going to do just fine. I hope so.
Nice. How can you sell strong trust as a superpower during an interview?
Oh, that's tremendous. That's tremendous. To me, it's about those soft skills. When you're on an interview and a conversation comes up about trust or about soft skills in general, you just say, my superpower is building trust with teams. My superpower is within 90 days, you're going to feel really good about your new hire and how they're fitting in and how they're influencing, not only how they're doing on their tactical work, but also how they're establishing themselves in the culture of the business. So I think strong trust usually fits under kind of the soft skills area in an interview, but establish your credibility. It's okay to say, I'm really, really good at this. Because this really is a superpower.
Nice. So I think we have one more question.
Okay.
Do you find trust starts, or maybe, no, wait, just one question. Do you find that trust starts from the top down or the opposite or the other way around?
For the organization, the trust typically comes top down, right? That's what it means by being in a high trust organization. A lot of those studies that I showed were for some of the data was, do you trust the leadership team? So it definitely needs to be established from the executive team, but you need to live those organizational values too and be a part of it and buy into it, because if everyone from the top down and bottom up are buying into the trust culture, it's just gonna be a great place to work. It really is.
Matt, thanks for being real.
Cool.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. That was great.
The Product Marketing Alliance membership is an incredible resource for product marketers with all types of experience.
It's definitely a goldmine of information and resources, from the Slack community to the templates and resources.
I can go out and see how are other people thinking about their growth strategies or product adoption. How are others thinking about the best ways to do customer interviews, or how others are setting up the content and customer advisory boards.
There's some great real life examples that I can either make a copy of or take as inspiration and really make my own.
Getting access to the videos and the templates is more than worth the cost, because you get to see what the top PMMs are doing and how they think.
From persona frameworks to go-to-market templates to articles written by experienced product marketers, this content has become an additional resource to help me succeed at my job.
My personal favorite is the mentorship program. It's definitely been a game changer for me.
When I have some planning time available, I love to look at the different videos and conferences that they have posted. I always love to hear how other companies are handling some of the challenges and opportunities that product marketing has.
I could then figure out what's the best way to adapt for us, as well as look at how other people are implementing them. So I can ultimately do the work of 5 individuals as a solo PMM.
Whether you're just transitioning into the field or you're a product marketing expert, I think there's content and materials that are useful for everyone.
And as someone looking to break into the role, I get a good grasp of what I should be doing and also what will make me successful once I do.
And the best thing is that as members, we get access to new content all the time. PMA constantly keeps adding more materials, articles, and tools.
This whole program's been very validating for me in my career.
And so I highly encourage you to check out.
I believe they keep pushing the bar and supporting their members to ensure that we become experts in the field.